And we're live. Welcome everybody here to the Lakers Lounge. I'm Anthony Irwin, joined by one of every so often a guest will pop up on here that I get to brag to my parents about, and and today is one of those such occasions. Today I'm joined by Mirin Fader. She is of The Ringer. She is a best-selling author. She is a prolific writer, probably the best features writer out there right now. She wrote something about Bronny James that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. But I wanted to start in this very important topic, Mirin. How nice is it to talk to me and not have to worry about Harrison? It's got to be great, right?
I love you both equally. Let's just get that out of the way. Hi, Harrison, in case you're watching. No, thank you for what you said. That's so nice. I'm always happy to be here with you.
I mean every word of it, especially the last part about Harrison. We are going to be talking today, though, about that piece that you wrote. Harrison actually let me know that this was coming, that this was going to be dropping soon. I reached out to you, asked when it was dropping, and you were nice enough. Normally, when stuff like this drops, your schedule and writers' schedules just fill the hell up, and I really appreciate you making time. And I just want to know, this dropped this morning. What have the last, whatever we're at, 10 hours or so been like? As what are your mentions just a supreme tire fire right now?
Surprisingly, no.
Okay.
Everyone's been really nice. Maybe because they actually read the piece and saw that it was empathetic. You're always worried about, okay, people aren't even going to read it. They're just going to impulse tweet something negative, but it is only 1 p.m. There's still plenty of time for negativity to come to my inbox. But no, I mean, the night before every story that I do, I'm always just a little bit anxious because I care so deeply about my work and I put so much into it. So much goes into it that people don't realize. And, we go through multiple back and forths edits wise. And I don't know. I just woke up and first of all, I really loved the graphic. I was so impressed by that. Shout out to our team who did that. I don't know. I really like the responses. People are shockingly receptive to the empathy because I feel like the discourse has been anything but. So very refreshing.
That's actually a really interesting spot, and a really interesting topic, in that I really think Bronny has become a sympathetic figure. I really think that, it's insane to me that this season, or his season, started with cardiac arrest. And now, so all of a sudden, people are surprised at the fact that this guy's season hasn't gone to plan, or that he wasn't necessarily ready, or to step into that situation. This season was already going to be brutal enough as it was, because of the kind of, again, the shadow hanging over everything that he does on a basketball court. But the cardiac arrest was something that, people are like, all right, well, good thing he recovered. All right, we can't wait to see him play basketball now. I just kept on thinking, because I've dealt with a heart thing my entire life, and I just kept on thinking, hold on, we can't just zoom right past that. And in your research and in your reporting for this, I was curious, what it seems pretty unique that he would play this season. USC just had a guy miss the entirety of a season with a similar thing the year prior. And, from the people that you've spoken to, is that something that, it's not that they're using as an excuse, but I feel like that's important context to the starting point on this year, right? How have we zoomed right past that?
Yeah, I think the problem with discourse and sometimes takey culture and sports media is that it is very easy to cruise past something, even if it is as severe as a cardiac arrest, which is just so telling of our industry. But it's interesting that you mentioned sympathetic because I experienced the opposite in my reporting. I went to so many games where he was booed and not treated with the respect like a human being, like we would all hope to be. And I think people almost forget about the cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
as if like, oh, well, that was in July. It's February now. And
He should be fine.
yeah, like there's just not the same energy when like somebody tears their ACL or sorry, there might be a battery thing going on in my apartment. Don't know if you heard that. I'm sorry. Um, every day is something different. So sorry. Yeah, like I think that we treat other injuries a little bit differently than heart injuries. And I don't know if it's because of a lack of education or knowledge, but the truth of the matter is, as you know, Coach Andy Enfield said to me, the USC coach, in my reporting, look, he missed a lot of time. And so you have the normal freshman learning curve, and then you have this, which is, you know, even more setbacks. So I thought that, you know, Coach Enfield was a great person to talk to in the piece. And, you know, he really gave insight into like how difficult it is to not just be a freshman, but to come back from something like that.
Yeah, this dropped 2 days, almost to the day 34 years ago that Hank Gathers passed away, like on a court, you know, with cardiac arrest and stuff like that. And it's just crazy that we're just like zooming right by it. It's insane. It's mind blowing that like we lack that kind of empathy for somebody who faced, you know, serious as a heart attack is a literal cliche that gets thrown around all the time, and we're just ignoring it for the sake of basketball. And I think also for the sake of dunking on LeBron. Like, I think you had a really interesting moment in that piece that like as I was reading it, I was kind of laughing at the ridiculousness of it. And then you wind up pointing out how ridiculous it was, where Bronny's playing at Cal, and there's this giant roar of applause for LeBron when he walks into the arena. And then they start booing his son while LeBron is there. And it made me, you know, I'm a father. We were talking literally before we went live here about my daughter and my kid and my and so like I'm thinking like as I'm reading your piece, it's like not only have we lacked empathy, I think, for Bronny, but I think also for LeBron as a parent, because of course he would lash out when he saw that his kid wasn't in mock drafts. Of course he's frustrated that, you know, it's not that he's frustrated that Bronny's season hasn't gone to plan. He's frustrated that people have completely ignored why potentially his season hasn't gone to plan. And that moment, I can't even fathom the rage that would build up in me while I'm sitting there courtside and my kid is getting booed for merely being my kid. I like in talking to people, how do you think LeBron has handled that? Like, is there any possible way to handle that, you know, without just wanting to scream at every single person individually who are doing that to your kid who carries your namesake? Like, it's wild.
It's really wild. You know, while I don't have insight into, you know, LeBron's thinking as far as what that feels like, you know, because they didn't participate in the story, you've got to just take a moment and feel empathy as any human being would in this situation, which is why the Cal scene I felt was so apt and why I kept repeating the words father, son. Like there's multiple times throughout the piece where I'm reminding the reader, hey, in case you forgot, right? Like, there are readers that are fathers. There are readers that are sons. Whether you're famous or not, there is this bond and this connection that is relatable no matter what. And I think that when I was sitting at Cal, I couldn't believe it. Like I was so, you know, that feeling, well, you know, I'm always sober, but like, I always feel like, you know, sometimes I'm like, am I the only sober person in the room? You know, like I just like, everyone was just, you know, being horrible. And I was just like, what did he do? Like, he is not the top two best players on his team. There's no reason to boo this person. I don't even like when people boo other people who are averaging 20 points, but I'm just saying it was so direct and it was so targeted and it was so sad. And so I wanted this piece to show not just what it's like to be in Bronny's shoes or what it's like to be, you know, a father who is at the top of, you know, the game, an all-time legend who has his son in this predicament, but also kind of give readers a sense of like, here's where we're at as modern sports culture. This is what we do. We troll. We're mean. We don't
Yeah.
have empathy. And it's really sad.
Quick aside, have you ever booed anybody? I can't picture you angry,
No.
to be completely honest. Like,
No,
I
I
can't picture, like, I can picture you angry at, like, you know, at people booing and stuff like that, but I can't picture you, like, because you played sports and you've grown around sport. Like, have you ever, as a fan, been drawn to rage? Like, has that
no,
ever happened?
no. In fact, and there was
Me
a
neither. It's never happened to
you
me.
like unless you like actually if you God forbid like hurt my family member or kill my there's really the bar is just that's the only way you will get any type of like anger or reaction from me. So for merely existing, like no, like this is really not that deep. And I was sitting next to a student reporter for Cal's newspaper, and I just looked at him, and he's a bit younger than me, right? Like I'm 32, he's probably like 19, 20 Bronny's age. So I just turned to him and I was like, oh God, I'm approaching the youth. Like I'm asking them why they do this.
Hello
And
there, fellow youth. Like, yeah.
I just looked at him and I was like, why are they doing this? This is so mean. And
Yeah.
he's like, we've grown up with Bronny. And I just felt like and this is no shade to that guy. He was so nice.
Yeah.
But it just was like more like, wow, like our reactions are so different. I was so viscerally offended by the booing. And he was just kind of like, par for the course.
Yeah.
And I just think, I don't know, maybe I just have a different lens. Definitely more empathetic for sure.
I'm pretty much okay with booing if somebody earns it, you know, like so the other night, like Josh Giddey was getting booed every time he touched the ball when he's playing against the Lakers. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I can kind of get that. Or like if Paul Pierce does or says anything, all right, I kind of get that. But again, like going back to and I think it's a very important point that you're making here. Bronny hasn't done that,
Right.
and frankly, LeBron hasn't done anything to warrant treating his kid this way. Like I understand if you're right leaning, you probably feel a certain way about LeBron, but does that make it okay then to drag his kid?
Right.
Or if you're, now a Celtics fan, or if you are a Raptors fan or something like that, somebody who LeBron has tormented over years and years and years of playing basketball. I understand being frustrated with LeBron, but I don't understand going the next step of taking it out in person on Bronny. And that's where I think this is kind of interesting, because you're talking about the in-person setting with Bronny, but I feel like online, I this is purely anecdotal, but when the conversation of Bronny comes up, I do kind of feel like there's a lot more. This is like, it's probably unique to the situation. I feel like there's a lot more humanity and a lot more empathy shared towards Bronny online than in person, where in person you have this rabid situation that you're talking about that you encountered. But then online, I've noticed, like, yeah, I'm sorry, like he's not quite ready to be in the mock draft quite yet. And have what do you think, if you agree, and you don't have to, but like, what do you think would be going on there, that in person there's this visceral response by a crowd, but online, which is usually the worst place on earth, there's like you're talking about at the beginning of the show, there's been a little bit more empathy, a little bit more caring in the response to your piece?
I mean, I slightly look at it different. I think this
Okay.
is why social media is like your own echo chamber,
Yeah.
because for whatever reason, even though we follow a lot of the same people, I just see negative about Bronny. I don't see the same compassion that you do. Maybe there's like a one-liner hedge, but I think that has more to do with journalists not wanting to get blackballed by Clutch or Access rather
Yeah.
than their feelings for Bronny. But I'm just not speaking about journalists. And again, I'm so sorry for that. I don't know what is going on with this.
I'm just picturing that as like Skip Bayless off in the background.
Like,
Like, I just picture him like bark, like ringing the doorbell. Please let me in so I can come in here. And
as soon as we started, I'm like, wow, it's always something, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to take care of that after this. Sorry, everyone. But I think that like, as far as like the average fan, I've definitely seen the cruelty online.
yeah,
But in person is different. That's why I'm so shocked. In person is like, you got to say it with your whole chest. there's got to be something in you that is comfortable booing a child. Like, I know he's not a child, but
Yeah.
when I look at Bronny, I see people that I know, I see people that I came up with, I see kids that I know that have famous dads. I just don't understand, like, unless he has done something to you, why that would elicit that reaction. And like I said, it's not just one time, it's not just for a half, it's the whole game. And the fact that they're wearing the dad's jersey, like, if you want to be a hater, be a full hater.
Yeah.
But when LeBron came in and they're wearing his jersey and they're like, oh my, a lot of that section was cut, but originally in the piece, it, because it's pretty long, but originally in the piece I had like how extra the fans were, and they were like, oh my gosh, I love you, LeBron, over here. And they were live streaming it to their followers. They were FaceTiming, oh my God, LeBron, can't believe it. And then after the game, I walked to the loading dock where USC's bus was. That scene also was deleted from the final story. But all these fans came to the Trojan bus to try to get a picture of LeBron. And so it's like insane. Like, you just spent the whole game booing his son and you sprinted to the bus to get a picture of the dad. Like, what? To me, I just can't reconcile that.
And then if LeBron like turns down an autograph or turns down a selfie or something like that, they're getting like, how dare you? How dare you? I pay your salary. No, I also think, another interesting aspect of this is, whether or not he is ready to go pro. And it felt like Enfield in the piece was, it seems like he kind of shares the opinion that maybe it's best that Bronny stay back a year. Again, this we've basically reached pretty close to consensus that he could probably use another year in college. I don't have any intel on what is anticipated or whatever, but I found myself wondering while I was watching or while I was reading your piece, would it have been better for Bronny to play football? Would it have been better for him to play baseball or some other sport where the expectations are, we know he's going to be an athlete. We know who his dad is, but just like Michael's kids back in the day, when Marcus and Jeffrey were both coming up and they were playing basketball, the whole time you're watching them play, you're like, okay, you're not as good as your dad, which shouldn't be a shocking revelation or anything like that. But I found myself wondering throughout the entire piece, like, man, I wonder if we would have been this bad at this with him playing a different sport. And did you ever feel like the people around him, have kind of taken it upon themselves to help like lift him up through this? Did you feel like people needed to do that with this? It's just such a unique situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the chaos around him probably would have been a little bit less if he chose a different sport. But it would still be there to a degree, but not
Yeah.
in the same, like, will you be as good, but more just like, you're a celebrity, your dad's a celebrity, all eyes are on you. So the eyes would still be there, just in a different way. I actually, as the piece was going, and so I went to several USC games for this, both at home and on the road. And the whole time I just kept thinking, like, I wonder what Bronny's career would have been like if he would have went to a place like Murray State. Like, when I profiled John Morant when he was in college, it was such an interesting experience. I was driving through Tennessee to get to this part in Kentucky. It wasn't easy to get there. It took like 3 hours. And I just wonder if he had been at a secluded place like that. Yes, like, would all the media flock to Murray State? Of course. But they wouldn't be there every second the way they are in
Yeah.
LA. And so I more so thought of, like, what if he went to a different place? But I really can't speak any more highly about Enfield and the staff, and I can. I mean, they've got an impossible task. You cannot shield him from media. You can, in the sense that he's not going to do interviews, but at the same time, like, he is on full display, and everyone has empathy. The people at USC are super kind and, like, understanding of the situation. And I think, teammates are as well. So, but yeah, like, I think even what if he went to a Long Beach State? Would, there be less pressure? I don't know.
USC in particular is such like a darling school that like has its own inherent. I'm a UCLA fan, so I hate USC. So I'm like there's there's
I got a lot
no.
of those emails today, by the way. As a UCLA fan, I regret to inform you that I really liked your story. And I was like, I come from a family of Bruins. I get it.
Yeah, but like, to your point, had he gone to a smaller school, that was a Freudian slip, a
Oh,
smaller
yeah.
school, or had he gone to like a school in like a smaller town kind of a thing, maybe there would have been more of a kind of communal aspect of, no, he chose us. We are going to like really, really back him as a city, as a group like that. Whereas like with USC, he's just, another star in a galaxy,
Mhm.
and there's just not, you're kind of limited in the amount that you can really kind of back him there. And I think, like you said, they don't make him available to the media. And seems like Clutch is really kind of taking the reins on PR and stuff like this. And I think, I think do you think that's a good thing? Would you like to see how he would handle kind of speaking up and speaking in his own voice?
Well, I'm always gonna, not stand up, but I'm always gonna advocate for journalists to have access because,
Yeah.
we live in a very anti-media time period, but journalism is more important than ever. And as you can see with a piece like this, even without their voices, it can be done tastefully, professionally, ethically. So imagine if I would have got his voice, I think it could have been like really powerful.
Yeah.
Um, I think that we're just at a pivotal time and places like, Uninterrupted, they're doing their own narrative. So, I guess it's not for me to say, what's right and wrong. It's more so just like this is the climate we're in. And sometimes you have to, if you want to do a story, which we did because we felt this story was nationally relevant, one of the biggest stories, and we wanted to do it ethically and tastefully. And, so we reported around. But I think, over the years, like I've really changed the way that I see access. Like when I entered the business, like doing this would be called a write around,
Hmm.
but I don't consider it a write around anymore. It's just reporting, right?
Yeah.
Like I would call Coach Cal regardless. Once I saw that he was at the fourth grade AU nationals, I was like, oh, I need him,
Yeah.
So all of these things would have been in place regardless, but that's just the kind of hustle and effort you've got to do. I mean, I must have reached out to like 30 people for this story. A lot of people I think are protective, so they, didn't want to speak. But the ones that I did were like, oh, thank God, like a story about who he is as a person. We're missing that. So I was really, happy to see people wanting to participate.
Yeah. As is to be expected at this point, I think you did a great job at telling the story, despite not having his voice in there. I come from PR. Like that is what I did before I did any of this. And the number one rule of PR is either you tell your story or somebody else is going to tell it for you. And I can guarantee you're not going to like somebody else's telling of your story.
Mm.
And when I was reading this and I saw that Bronny was not available for this piece, I was like, man, if there was anybody who would take special care of this person's voice and this person's message, it would have been Mirin. And the situation and kind of the societal stance on journalism now is so toxic that even you who wrote the honest book and have done incredible profiles and pieces on people before can't get access to this kid because, and I also, by the way, don't even necessarily blame LeBron, because he grew up in this and he's
Sure.
basically a child star who is one of one in his ability to navigate those waters for as long as he has. And for him, the way that he's been able to navigate those waters is to hold access over the people covering him, right? And so for him, he's like, all right, well, we're gonna still use that same playbook with Bronny as has worked with me. So I kind of understand it from him, but I find myself more kind of disappointed in what it says about us and everything, right? Waves generally at everything, that in this opportunity to talk to somebody who is truly empathetic to Bronny in that situation, they would still pass up on it. And there was always that little bit that was missing from it, and it's kind of on them. It's their decision.
Yeah, and I fully respect it. Like
Yeah.
I that's the thing, like whether Bronny would talk to me or not, the empathy is still the same. When I do a profile, whether or not somebody speaks to me, and thankfully it's like 98% of the time they do,
Mhm.
I'm holding their heart in my hands. Like
Yeah.
I'm holding their life, their most intimate moments, the things that made them into them in my heart. I can't say it any more eloquent. I know that was not very eloquent, but it's just I live for this. This is
Yeah.
my life. This is more than my career. This is my passion. And so um I respect anyone. There are so many. I actually, my mentor, Jeff Proman,
Mhm.
told me this when I was doing my book. He was like, people have reasons that they want to talk or don't want to talk. Like sometimes I'd reach out to, a guy that hadn't played in the NBA in 20 years and he didn't want to talk. And I'd just be thinking, like, why can't you just give me 5 minutes of your time?
Mhm.
But you never know. And so it doesn't, you have to respect everyone's decision, and you owe your readers a truthful story regardless of how much access you get. So like there are things I cannot know. There are things that I won't know. And so I'm not going to focus my story on those things. If you notice, it was more so grounded in what it's like being in his shoes, the environment, all of those things. Every story has its limitations. You do the best you can.
I'm going to be kind of careful with this one because I don't want to come off as saying that it is like any of this is like LeBron's fault, because again, all LeBron has done, and like, people are going to feel a certain way about LeBron, period. But all LeBron has essentially done here is been a father, a caring father, a supportive father as his kid pursues his dream. And again, like even when he lashed out at the mock draft thing, I kind of laughed at it at first, but then like as I spent a couple more minutes on, I was like, man, I'd probably do the same. I'm a dad. I'm just as competitive. There's a kid across the street from us. My daughter is like this tiny little girl. She's always been in like 25th percentile in size. She's a tiny little thing. And because of that, she has these tiny little legs, right? So the kid across the street is this bigger, like taller girl. Her dad is like a former professional running back. And I think her mom is a former like track athlete at Baylor, I believe. So like they were racing one day around the block, and Avery is like 3 blocks behind this girl, and I'm like, you got this, kid, you got this. And I'm like as I'm reading, and I'm looking at LeBron's tweets, and he took them down, which I found really interesting as well. But as I'm reading those tweets and I see him lashing out at this entire situation, or at this aspect of the situation, I totally get it. But also, I also found myself kind of thinking, and this was kind of my initial analysis of the situation, is like, well, Bronny, if he was any other kid, if he was anybody else's, kid, it wouldn't matter that he would go back to school. It would make total sense. And again, not that isn't to say that it's LeBron's fault that he's his kid, but it is to say that Bronny is feeling this extra pressure here. That graphic, like you mentioned, the shadow is hanging over his decision here. And yeah, some teams are probably going to line up and scout him differently, either out of respect or to hopefully sway LeBron's free agency decision. I know the Lakers would like to be in a position to be able to draft him kind of organically, and we'll see what that kind of looks like. But as Bronny preps to make this decision, and there is kind of this inherent pressure to do something that he may not necessarily be ready for. While you were writing it, how did you feel about that situation?
Well, it's funny because I have been working on the story since January 1st.
Hmm.
So it became a national thing, with the tweet literally like the day after I turned it in, or the day
Yeah.
before, something like that. And I had to like add in all the stuff. And then Saturday,
Yeah.
Rich Paul added the stuff. So we continued to add it in. But for me, I wrote much of it without that because that was not the discourse, and that I, aspired to make this story unique in that it didn't focus on LeBron. Now, how can you write a story about Bronny without LeBron? You can't. Like it reminded me of when I first covered LaMelo Ball in Lithuania. I went over there. I tried so hard to just make it purely a LaMelo story, and then I couldn't, because every move that LaMelo makes, his dad made it for him. And so you kind of had an interesting power dynamic there and an interesting power dynamic here. So I just wanted, of course, LeBron to be in the piece because, his love, his class, his maturity, his poise, all these things rubbed off on Bronny, which is why, a lot of the people I talked to said that, like, it's because of this foundation that Bronny is able to handle this moment so well. So I focused on that part, the person over the prospect. The discourse was rampant, blaming LeBron, saying it's, and I just let them do that. That's never been my lane. My lane as a journalist, it's not about my opinion. It's not about me. Not only am I not the main character, I am not a character. So for me, that was not hard because I knew the focus had to be on, again, my North Star, father and son. Father and son. Oh, this tweet. Okay, that's a dad. Okay, this moment in the game, that's a dad. When I kept that as my North Star, I just sort of waited. I wanted to, as I told you, we were texting, I was like, I just want to be above the fray. Like, I'm not here to get a spicy take. Like, that's not me. That's not the work that I want to produce.
Yeah, I totally get it. And I think it makes for a better story, frankly, staying out of it. And because nobody can relate to LeBron. Nobody, honestly, I think there are probably people who can relate to Bronny in that, like, anybody whose parent was successful in an industry and they felt pressured to go into that industry because of the parent, even though, like, that parent's success in that industry does offer up some unique opportunities for that person, that might not be their interest, right? And that's the part of this that, and this isn't to say that Bronny doesn't want to eventually, he wouldn't have spent this much energy on being this good at basketball to where, even if he doesn't make it as a professional athlete, he still played Division I basketball at USC. And maybe some of that has to do with LeBron being his dad. And maybe he eventually gets into the NBA because of who his father is. But it's also like the thing that this story I thought did a great job of was making LeBron relatable. Like, that's such an impossible task, is making LeBron, like, I can't relate to LeBron in just about any other thing, but the thing that I can actually relate to is the response to when somebody is doing wrong by their kid. And I thought that Cal situation and how things play out over the next few months before Bronny, has to make his decision on whether he decides to go to the pros or if he stays at USC or if he transfers, whatever. I thought that, by staying kind of above the fray and not offering up your own take, that did a great job of doing the impossible and making LeBron relatable. Who did you find yourself kind of relating to most while you were writing this?
Well, thank you for saying that, because I really do feel like enormous compassion for LeBron. Imagine being in an arena where everyone's booing your son.
Dude, I wouldn't have handled it very well.
My heart hurt. And I was just like, I have no, I don't know them. Interesting question. So in between ages, right? I'm between LeBron and Bronny in a very weird way. I'm close enough to Bronny where I'm younger, but I'm also close to LeBron in that I'm older. But I'm not a parent, so I don't know that particular angst when somebody comes for my child. But I actually saw so many of the people that I've profiled in Bronny because I have profiled a lot of young stars that actually were these kind of overnight sensations that did have the eye-popping stats, that did go one and done. And I know that I know the unique pressure actually that comes with those men and their stories and the things they shared with me about how even though it looked like they were going down the yellow brick road, things were really hard and people did not have compassion for their struggles because so much is going well. So I actually had almost like double compassion for Bronny because I know what it's like to be poised to be something and you're just not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm in LA. My best friend went to Sierra Canyon like years ago when it first started. Like, I'm very familiar with this scene. I'm very familiar with the landscape. And I just think that it just needed to be viewed out from a more human lens. And so, my hope was like, just show up. Okay, they don't want to talk to you, just show up. Keep coming to
Yeah.
games. Keep coming. Fly to Berkeley. Do whatever you can to like figure out what it's like to be in this person's shoes.
If you had spoken to Bronny, what would be a question that you would have asked him? What's one question that you wish you could ask Bronny?
Are you happy?
Mm,
Like,
man, that's tough. Yeah.
do you really love basketball? Um, what do people misunderstand about you? Um, I know you clearly handle things so well, but you're also a human being. So is there something you say to yourself when you hear the boos? Like, don't let it get you down. Don't let it, whatever. Is there something that, you know, I don't know, that you say to yourself to keep going? Um, I would I really, really, really wanted that interview. I must have
Yeah.
followed up like 30 times. I but I also believe that, um, a profile is just a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
So maybe he is ready to talk down the line, and I'm sure it will be with his company because that's what they're doing, and that's great. I just look forward to hearing it as a fan of basketball, not a
Yeah.
media member. Just I'm really looking forward to him like telling his story and finding out more about like, what it's been like to be so in the public eye. I mean, when Coach Cal told me that he sent scholarship papers after birth, at first I thought it was a joke. And then I
And
was
then
like,
and then they were filed.
"Oh, he really sent them. Okay. That's a distillation of what we're talking about, right?"
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so there's a little play, in the story
That's
thing.
like that Padme meme, right? Like Coach K jokes that like, "Oh, you're joking, right? You're not joking, you did
Not
send those papers."
right.
Oh, okay. All right.
Exactly. And, like, my editor, Matt Dollinger, like, he's so great, and he reminded me of that kid from Akron, and so I was like, "Okay, that kid, they cannot be the same kid. They have different lives, struggles." I was just trying to play with a lot of that language.
Same question, but about LeBron. And also as a quick aside, the other person that I found myself thinking about while I was reading this a lot was actually Savannah.
I know.
In that like she married LeBron and she has lived a very nice life as a result of being LeBron's better half. And she goes to all of these games, the games that LeBron isn't there for, right? She's in that environment as well. Did you I don't even know if there's even a question attached to this. I found myself thinking a lot about somebody who has even less control over the situation as LeBron does, and as Bronny does, and Savannah just kind of has to ride this out. Again, I can't even fathom how frustrating all of this must be for her too, as again, she goes from feeling like she might lose her kid to now fast forwarding a few months, in every arena that he walks into, every time he touches the ball, he gets booed for the sake of merely being my child and my child with my all-time great husband. I just like all of that is just mind melting.
Yeah. I mean, all I see, obviously this is just an observation from afar and not any personal insight because I didn't speak with Savannah, but
Yeah.
all I see is pure class.
Yeah.
Strength, class, professionalism, poise. Um, I really wanted to, I knew I wasn't going to get to talk with her, right? Like I sort of, when you pitch this story, you're shooting from half court. And
Yeah.
again, I will pull, but like
Yeah.
I don't expect to get them, let alone Savannah. But, it's a shame because I think so much of my most meaningful work is because of the mothers that I interview, like
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan's mom, Giannis's mom, like pretty much every story, their moms. And I think there's a really unique connection that I get to have with the moms of these men, just because I am a woman sports writer. There's just a different level of connection and compassion. And so, yeah, I wish that could have happened, but I think if you take away anything from this piece is like, yeah, while that is Savannah James, she's also just the mother of these kids. And so have some respect about what it feels like to be in her shoes when you're booing her child.
I think everybody should experience being booed just once.
I don't want to get booed, but you know
No,
what?
well, all right. How about this? Everybody who like would boo at people should have the experience of being booed,
There
right?
you
Like,
go. There you go. Because I'm like, don't bring it towards me. I'm good. I'm like checking, like, has anybody come for me? No, not yet. Not yet.
No, if anything, like I might just boo your smoke alarm, but other than I would never boo.
I feel so bad, Anthony. Like I kid you not, it began the minute after we started. This has not happened
like
in 3 years.
We talked for like 5 minutes before we went go. We saw nothing then. Last thing before I get you out of here, and again, I please do hope that you guys check out the piece that she wrote for The Ringer about Bronny. And about LeBron in this entire situation. And it's an evolving situation. This isn't the end. Like you said, this is a snapshot of how this is all going down when everybody hit send on this piece. But, I asked about what you would ask Bronny, but what would you have asked LeBron if you could have spoken to him about this?
What did that feel like to hear the boos at Cal, specifically that game, right?
Yeah.
Because you traveled to the Bay, which I know is not a big deal, but literally you came on a huge night, the NBA trade deadline eve.
Yeah.
Whew, we need some more coffee.
He's like, I'm trying to get freaking DeJounte Murray in a Lakers uniform, and my kid is being booed.
You said it, not me. Anyways, so anyways, and I would have loved to know that. The other thing is that I truly, truly, truly felt that this section where we quote LeBron talking about his regrets, like naming Bronny. Yeah. I thought that was so profound. It's so very hard. And you know this more than me because I'm not a parent, but I think it's so very hard for parents to say things like that and admit, regret or
yeah.
And I would just like to ask him more about that. But I also would love to know more joyous moments. Although it's a tough situation Bronny finds himself in, to me, I thought the crux of the piece was that moment where LeBron was like, keep shooting. And they shared this beautiful moment between them. Like, I would love to ask LeBron, like, what are other joyous moments throughout the years where you felt like you two had that special connection? Yeah, because you know what? He's just a dad. Like, I think that's the hardest part for people. He is not just a dad, but he is just a dad. He really is just a dad.
I mean, fatherhood is by far the most humiliating thing that anybody will ever encounter. Because, a quick aside as well before we get you out of here. But like my, this year, because I've started doing more reporting and stuff, and one of the people that I was talking to after I reported, the first one that I got right was the Vanderbilt into the lineup and D'Angelo Russell being benched. And I was getting texts from the people who helped me break that story. And they're like, oh, look at you, mini Woj, look at you go. And I'm like, you are sending me this while I am like wiping my son's ass. I'm like, there is nothing more humiliating. Yeah. Like, it's just like, I could like be, on top of this mountain, this brand new venture that I'm trying out. Like breaking stories is something I've never done before. Right. And it's its own rush. But no, the thing that immediately brought me down to earth on that is, after I break that and it gets proven true, my son waddles over to me and I smell, Of course. And so, like, again, I thought that, like, this is such a cool story. It's such a cool topic because you made LeBron somebody who was inherently unrelatable. Like, the reason Steph ascended to popularity, or one of the reasons he ascended to popularity, is that he was more relatable than LeBron, because LeBron is this 6'8", 250, Greek statue who can jump 40 inches into the air.
Right.
And Steph is not that. So people found themselves saying, like, oh, I kind of like, the idea of somebody who looks like Steph having success against that guy. But
Right.
fatherhood and parenting and these kinds of situations are so relatable to anybody who has ever had kids, or even, younger siblings and stuff like that. It's such a great story. I really do legitimately hope people take time to read it. Mirin, thank you a ton for making time for me today and dealing with my nonsense, as you always do. Um, I greatly appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to plug before we get you out of here?
Well, I just want to thank you and congratulate you on everything that you're doing. Like, it's so, I know I'm biased because I'm your friend, but it is really cool to see you shining. My Hakeem book, which is called Dream, is coming out October 15th. So pre-orders will be available soon. So
Man,
if you guys could just, watch for that announcement. I do have a Substack now. I am on Instagram now. As you know, I've joined the 21st century. I am still on Twitter.
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to it.
That is Mirin Fader. She does incredible work. I can't wait for that Hakeem book. If the Giannis book was already incredible, you also did something for that Giannis book that I greatly respect and admire, was you reading it for your audiobook.
Oh,
I know how difficult that
if y'all
has
need
to
a good
be.
laugh, just listen to the audiobook, because I am both NPR and cringe at the same time. And I'm so embarrassed every time somebody's like, I just listened to it. I'm like, oh, why'd you do that? Why?
It's actually very good. You got to check out all of her stuff. Again, Mirin, thank you a ton for coming on. To everybody else, we have the game tonight. I will be on All Access Lakers for. I have the post game right here in the lounge right afterward. And then we have Aaron coming up tomorrow afternoon as well. Mirin, thank you a ton. This was always a blast.
Thank you.